3, 2, 1. And welcome to the uh, 8th episode of the Talk Louder podcast. This week, in light of Halloween being this coming Thursday, we're going to be doing a very special themed episode. As you can tell by the title card and the image coming up, we're all decked out for Halloween. We've got our podcast costume on. And Tom has a disclaimer to mention.
In this episode, there will be jump scares, so don't listen to it while you're driving.
So for the faint of heart, be wary. Also, they won't be awful jump scares, so Don't worry. So yeah, we're back this week with good old Jacob and Tom. How was your week off?
Pretty good. Got a lot of work done.
Good. And then, as loyal listeners, I imagine you listened to the episodes of the podcast, the one that you missed.
I
already know Jacob did it.
I really like Trevor and Hunter. Those guys were funny.
That's the scariest part of all. I got asked if I actually listened to the podcast.
There's a jump scare. So in this week, we're going to be talking Halloweeny stuff. We're going to be doing a special reading of a creepypasta, and then the normal banter. Before we get into the spooky stuff, I'll say I slept like a baby last night because we had our Halloween party, and I got in my typical Dracula costume. But I had a dream that I was playing just a Pokemon game, like nondescript. It wasn't like anyone in the past. I was just playing Pokemon, and I woke up today really craving Pokemon.
Oh man, is this the one where we finally talk about Pokemon?
No, I'm just excited about the game because I just want to play Pokemon at any capacity.
I like how he was like, not really, and just completely crushed your dreams of talking about Pokemon.
Well, no, it's not the one. We can talk about Pokemon. This isn't the one where we're arguing about Sword and Shield, is what he meant.
It's true. That's what I was trying to get at.
Oh, and speaking of Pokemon, my mom called me today. She made reservations for me and Isaac to go to the Pokemon Cafe while we're in Japan.
Oh man. Damn, I want to go to Japan.
Come with me.
Let's plan a trip.
Can I come with you?
The podcast goes to Japan.
That'd be dope. I'm up for it.
Our final episode. So yeah, I really want to play Pokemon. Anybody else have any strange cravings this week? Cammy's craving Mexican food or Arby's.
I'm really glad Cammy is craving those two things. I'm craving.
She sent me this morning.
I'm craving kind of spooky movies. I kind of watch the spooky movies with some people.
You want to have a spooky movie night?
Yeah, maybe. That sounds fun.
If you listen to the last podcast, we recommended some good spooky movies.
Oh, I remember. Those were really good recommendations.
Oh, what was Trevor's recommendation?
You know what? I don't really remember what Trevor said, but I remember Hunter's recommendations were really good.
What were they?
Because his wasn't movie number one, spooky movie number two.
It was Halloween Town.
The third spooky movie. Oh, Halloween Town's a great spooky movie.
Is it a spooky movie? It's just a Halloween.
It kind of is, isn't it? What's the movie? It might be Halloween Town. I don't remember.
Halloween Town is the movie my mom watches for Halloween.
Wait. Is that the one with guys? What's the movie with the night in the high school where there's the locker with the? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea.
Hunter's the expert of Halloween Town and could probably quote the entire movie, so I don't really know it that well. What kind of scary movie are you gonna watch?
I don't really know, honestly. Maybe The Apostate.
The Apostate again. I recommend Grave Encounters 1 and 2 if they're still on Netflix. They're kind of bad, but they're still just scary.
I should look it up. I should look up good scary movies. I need to watch them with people though. I want to watch some with Jesse, but then I want to watch some with friends too.
You're not very good at scary movies.
I can't be, actually. So I've discovered something about myself. If I fall into the fear, I will be a little baby. But last time I had a scary movie night, I actually watched an entire movie with just sitting still completely. Because if I just I actually try.
If I don't move a single muscle.
No. If I try to resist me getting scared, I won't get scared. It's a weird thing. Like if I just don't because like when I get scared and I like hunch over, I'm like like I get more scared. It just is like it's like an effect, you know.
I get it. So, what Halloweeny things do you guys want to talk about? Obviously, I
Well,
could talk about we had our Halloween party yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
I was an alien kind of, or like a person being abducted by an alien. One of those two
It
things.
was really good.
Yeah,
We
except it
just
was way
came
too
to a
big, which
very
made me
packed
sad.
building.
Yeah, it was. I had a lot of fun last night actually. It was good. It was good stuff. I think my door is open.
Uh-oh.
Which like, I don't want to explain it anyway. I'm gonna drink some water real fast. Water break.
glug 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 glug.
Okay, so Tom, what is your Halloween thing?
I just wanted to talk about Marble Hornets, the original Slender Man story, because I really like
We
Marble
never
Hornets.
finished that?
I know I didn't finish it because every time we tried to start a new tape, everybody would just start talking immediately, and then nobody would actually listen to it. So
What's
To be
what's
fair, we watched like 3 hours of it in one sitting.
that's
I've never-
because it's an 8-hour like thing.
I've never heard of
And we
this.
Marble
Alright, Tom,
Hornets
explain.
is the original Slender Man story. Well, not the original Slender Man story, but it's the first like popularized Slender Man story.
Interesting.
It's what's called found footage. And I'm sure if you've ever seen like Blair Witch or anything,
I know.
that's called found footage when it takes place narratively as somebody coming across a bunch of old recordings.
As found footage.
Yeah, I get
Here
that.
goes the
Yeah.
name.
So in
Lost
Marble
footage.
Hornets, the main premise, and this is just like the opening. I'm not going to actually say anything about the plot of Marble Hornets. The opening is that there's this dude Jay, and he went to school with a bunch of people, and one of his friends was a film student, and he was doing like a film set somewhat in the past, but not super far in the past, where he basically, as part of the authenticity for his film, would use tapes to record footage on instead of like digital recording. So he starts Alex starts being stalked by Slender Man and has a bunch of these tapes that are mostly nothing, but he gives them he wants to get rid of them, and Jay's like, well, don't throw them away, because Jay thinks they're the movie footage, so he's like, don't throw them away, give them to me, I'll take care of them, maybe finish the movie at some point. And so Jay gets all these tapes and he starts going over them to see what sort of footage was on the movie, like how much of the movie had been finished, and he starts finding this evidence of Slender Man, and so he starts like investigating, and that's how Marble Hornets starts, and it spirals into this really cool sort of like episodic like piece that I really like.
Interesting.
Very good to watch, but there is a lot of it.
Yeah, it's like 8 hours worth of stuff. So
Interesting.
It's always a fun thing. It's just going onto YouTube and finding horror stuff. Like, what was the one thing we watched that time we came over?
well
Was it like a normal video of a bear?
Oh yeah. Shit, I don't remember what it's called. It's done by the same people as This House Has People in It. It's called like it's like completely
Oh my
normal
God.
footage of a bear or something. I don't remember what it's actually called.
I think one
But
of
it's
Jacob's
the
roommates
same thing.
died.
Yeah, Hiram just yelled. Do you hear that?
Yeah. Oh, it's unedited footage of a bear. That's the title.
Unedited, yeah.
And it's literally, it starts off as this infomercial, and it devolves very quickly into like this very
hectic and strange video.
Strange, like nothing really makes sense video. And I think stuff like that's really cool to watch.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's a fun time.
Hey,
there are also like
what?
I was gonna say that there are also the like augmented reality games, or alternative reality games where you get to like interact with people over like Twitter or certain actual websites, and you get to be involved in like how a story unfolds, and I think stuff like that's really cool.
I was gonna ask.
Jacob,
I can't spell. I was gonna ask, have you guys seen the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie.
You guys think it's good? Or do you guys think, like, I don't know.
neither of us have seen it.
Yeah,
I know, but I was looking up scary movies because I was thinking about how I wanted to watch some, so I was coming up with some ideas for some. And I remembered that came out recently, and I looked at it. It has a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I hope it's might watch it, honestly.
Is that the Nickelodeon one?
No, maybe. Is it? I don't think so. No.
Nickelodeon makes.
So Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a book. I know that. I don't know who the hell writes it, but they made it into a little movie.
Nickelodeon was making like a movie of it.
I don't think so. It's a children's
Something
book.
with a similar title that Nickelodeon's making.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It was released in
I don't-
August, and it's the production company is CBS. CBS made it.
Oh.
Distributed by Lionsgate. Yeah.
Oh no, this is not the one that Nickelodeon.
It's only
is doing.
100 minutes. It's actually not very long. Like an hour and a half. Like, what?
Nickelodeon's doing something. I don't know.
I wonder if this is gonna be good.
I was gonna say spooky stuff. I think you were talking about the augmented reality one that's really fun is
That
I
one's
can't
zombie.
think of it. The one where you play is like you're getting texts from something.
I mean, that's a lot of them.
I
it's really
can't do augmented.
It's the popularized one.
Oh, the one where you're in a. No, not that one. The hacking
No.
one.
No. I know what that one is.
I own that game.
Oh, it has like it's a one-word title. It's a weird word. It'll come to me later.
This looks really creepy.
But speaking of playing things, I think Hunter and I are going to get back into live streaming horror, and we're gonna do. So the name of the game I was looking for is The Beast Inside, and Cam and I were watching it, and the demo really scared us. Some guys were playing the demo, and then I was like, I'm definitely gonna play this game when it comes out. And me and Hunter played Blair Witch, and it was a fun time. It was not a good game, but it was a fun time. So I want to do it again for this. And this game actually is supposed to be scary, unlike Blair Witch, which
It
was
looks really
just
pretty,
awful.
actually.
Is Blair Witch
or
not
this
good?
game?
No, this game looks good.
And this
Like-
game looks
like
really good.
graphics wise.
Blair Witch was good for the first hour, and the next two were awful.
Hmm.
Because it does that thing that Blair Witch does, where it tries to be spooky by like being, I don't know. It's the whole like never show you the horror, but present horror all around you.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess like the best way to like compare it is like, I guess the whole feeling it's supposed to create is being lost in the woods and unexplained things going on. But the Blair Witch movies and I feel the video game never really captured that really well. Like in the beginning where you like start your descent into the madness was really good. And then it just starts doing some things where it's like, oh yeah, we have to be a video game. So they put some video game mechanics in that were really bad. Like it felt like I was just playing like a simulator, or it was like being lost in the woods simulator.
Yeah.
With some like
Okay.
ghosty horror, and that was really good. And then it was like, oh, but now it's a video game. Here's a mechanic with some ghosts that you have to do and hide from them. And I'm like, okay, well now this feels really out of place and really bad. And like, it's really finicky. So you're going through this thing where you're playing with like no, like it's like you're watching a movie, but living through it. And then it's a video game where you die and you go to a checkpoint and have to respawn. And it's actually kind of a hard thing to do. And that completely sucks you out of the illusion, is dying 10 times to the same thing in some really BS mechanic. That's my take. If you're going to do it, buy it, enjoy the first hour, and then return it to Steam.
It has mixed reviews, honestly.
And then look up the ending. And the ending's awful too, so.
Oh, yeah. If the ending's not good to your, like,
Don't buy it.
environment based, like,
What John just pretty much said is don't buy it. Watch someone play it on YouTube. It'd be good.
Basically, go watch my Twitch VODs.
There you go.
No, but I really want to do this.
Do you like Twitch VOD the entire
Beast
episode,
Inside.
the entire recording?
I don't know how to Twitch VOD, so I may have or I may not.
Okay, because I want to watch your live stream, but if I have to watch it live, like I'll try, but I don't know if I'll be able to. Because I actually do want to see you play this game again.
I'll VOD it with. I'll make sure to put it up as a VOD. So I guess that's our plan from a creative perspective or a content creation point of view. We've got this Halloween episode, or Halloween themed episode. Hunter and I are gonna be Twitch streaming that, so I'll link that. Whatever, if you want to do that, and like probably like Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll try and stream that. And Thursday, fingers crossed. I really hope I can finish this in time. We're gonna be doing a voice acted creepypasta with like the whole production level of sound and that sort of stuff. We're gonna be reading a creepypasta, but just like round robin reading style, just reading it. This one's gonna be like an audio book, more so. So I hope I can do that. I think I'm gonna need to get 2 people to give me 30 to 40 minutes of their life to record their voices.
Well, good luck with that.
A little bit of time to.
Where are you gonna find people like that?
Well, I was gonna ask you guys if one of you would do the lines, but I need a guy and a girl, so I can only take one of you.
I mean, I'm pretty sure me and Tom could figure it out. We could,
I can do a girl voice.
Get your voices down or something. Oh, no, please.
To make you sound more manly.
Yeah, that's you're good now.
Sorry, yeah. My brain's on. I've only been awake for a few hours. Leave me alone.
Like I said, pitch it down so we could sound like. No, so hopefully we can do that.
Voices just
Halloween, and I'll post
so
that.
high.
Probably like a 10 to 15 minute little clip that I put onto the channel. So look for that. Then we're doing something next weekend. I've got to go to a wedding next weekend. That's gonna be weird.
John's getting married.
No, but one of my high school friends is.
Also, I'm putting these like random horror games in our chat, but you don't have to talk about them now. But like, these are cool guys. That's
nice. Anywho, yeah. Weddings are weird. Life moves by fast.
Weddings are really weird, honestly.
And this is like going to a wedding.
They're
This is like my last Halloween in college.
Oh, don't say that. That's sad.
Well, I've got one more.
John, take the 5th year.
Yeah, I'm already here an extra semester, so I've got one more.
Yeah.
I think Hunter and I are gonna try and go out on Thursday.
Wait, John, where are you gonna live after college?
I'd like to stick around here.
It's a big question. Okay. Will you have another Halloween party next year?
Maybe. Hunter will be here, so maybe Hunter will throw one, and I'll come to that.
Okay.
I'll help him decorate.
Where are you gonna live?
I don't know.
This is too
It's
serious.
probably a better talk to have at the end of the podcast, like the end of the run of the podcast, like in half a year.
I'm kind of sad.
Well, on that bombshell,
he's gonna die.
Everybody, pull up one last trick or treat, and we'll do this reading.
Yes. Oh,
so I've been waiting for this for 30 minutes.
Everyone knows El Chan. He's famous for his copy pastas.
Oh shit! I just ran my chair into my desk. I hope that wasn't too loud.
No, I mean, it really wasn't.
Yeah, the you exclaiming was louder.
It did sound like you fell though, kind of.
No, I scooting my chair forward.
It sounded like one of those like those noise effects they play for like someone falling.
Alrighty.
Wait, can I drink some water before we do this?
You can.
Yeah, hydrate up, boys.
Everyone hydrate.
Hydrate up. Water break.
Lift your throat. Yeah.
I drank all my sweet tea, so.
Drink some water.
I have to go downstairs and get water. All right, so I do a paragraph, and then Tom does a paragraph. Every break, we swap.
Yes.
All right, and then I will link this. One Last Trick or Treat by El Chan. And so we begin. It's that time of year again. I know how I'm going to be spending Halloween. Same way I have for the past 2 years. Slowly nursing a beer in the bar. Watching the glass sweat on that smooth wooden counter. Staring at it till it goes warm in my hand. I'm not there to get drunk. I'm there to escape. I never want to be alone at home over Halloween night again. I promised the deputy that I wouldn't talk about that night. The town didn't need it. Hell, I even deleted the video. But now with Halloween around the corner, it all comes back. Well, small town law enforcement doesn't care too much about the internet.
I live in a small house at the end of the lane. Another nondescript house down a row of its sisters, prefabricated mostly. Far enough off the beaten path to be cheap, not so far as to be rural, but close, pretty damn close. I didn't expect many kids to call around trick-or-treating come Halloween. It's a long road, and most children manage to fill their baskets long before they get to my place. Besides, I quite like the peace and quiet. Halloween used to be a good night to settle down and catch some of the classic horror movies on TV. I kept a couple bags of candy around just in case some kids actually made it all the way down the lane, but mostly it would be an evening all to myself.
I can't quite remember what I was watching that night. Probably because I'd been enjoying an after-dinner beer and I may have gotten carried away. Dozing off after one too many, I woke with a start. My beer had gone warm on the side table. My hand still curled around the can. I winced as I unwrapped my fingers. Something had woken me up. The TV droned on in the background, the senseless drivel of late-night programming flickering across the room.
Maybe it was just some high school kids out after some Halloween party, out on the streets, making noise that woke me up. I checked the time, past midnight. I was glad that I'd invested in a little security for my house. Just the basics, really. A good camera to cover my front lawn, motion activated lights around the front and back.
I was trying to make the tough decision of whether to clear up the mess right there and then, or just to kick the can down the road till next morning when a loud rapping at the door shattered the silence. The can bounced off the floor, warm beer sprang across the bottom of my track pants. The shock left me too numb even to swear. I had just set the can back upright when the knocking sounded again. That arrhythmic rap increasingly impatient, the tempo building up as I stepped towards the door. I peered around the edge of the window. I saw nothing but my pale face in the glass. It was pitch dark outside.
Why wasn't the light working? The knocking stopped.
A tree branch, perhaps, or something else tapping on the porch. The peephole glared at me, that little glass orb suddenly bulging with some half-promised horror. I swallowed, or I tried. My throat was dry, the warm beer on the floor suddenly inviting.
It's nothing, I said out loud, hoping that the familiar echo of my voice off the walls would ground me somehow. I walked up to the door and peered out, only seeing the orange cones cast by the halogen streetlight a distance away.
Nothing, I thought to myself, feeling childishly stupid. I sucked in a deep breath, feeling my lungs strain, then let the air stream out slowly, then another out.
I turned back around to face the door. My heart punched at the inside of my chest, its crazed dance playing counterpoint to the knocking. I wasn't surprised to see my hand shake as I reached for the doorknob. Our town was a safe one, far from the troubles of the big city, or so we'd read in the papers. We had little more to fear in the night than seeing our trash strewn across the yard by the nimble fingers of raccoons.
I threw the door open. The porch lights winked on, suddenly blinding me. I blinked away the white spots from my vision. A pair of children stood on my porch. They must have been 9 or 10. I couldn't see much more of them, because they were in the classic Halloween getup. A simple sheet draped over each of them, a pair of holes cut out for them to see through. A pair of small baskets for candy broke the smooth lines of the sheets. The toes of brand new dress shoes peeked out from under the sheets. A boy and a girl, I thought.
Trick-or-treat.
Such a common refrain. I'd expected the words, but not the delivery. There were but 2 figures in front of me, yet their voices seemed to come from a great distance away.
Trick-or-treat.
Harris spoke again. I felt a little discomfited at the distortion of their voices. More than the weird volume, their voices seemed to blend into each other's, with some strange harmonics at play at the edges. It seemed almost as though there was a choir of 2, just there, speaking.
Treat, I guess, I said. More than anything, I wanted those 2 away from my house. The whole situation felt wrong. The familiar veneer of the season concealing something deeper. Something rotten like that small panic when biting into a fruit and feeling that lack of resistance. Your teeth sinking into soft mush instead of sweet flesh. For a moment, I blamed the haze of alcohol, the dregs of sleep clouding my judgment. But adrenaline had swept those far away. My fear was true.
I turned to the counter where I kept my keys and grabbed for the bag of candy I had prepared for the occasion. I was half hoping that the 2 figures would be gone when I returned to the door, that they'd been a figment of my imagination, perhaps a shadow of some dream brought on by cheap horror movies and cold pizza. I had no such luck. The pair hadn't moved an inch.
They each raised their baskets. There was already an assortment of candy there. They'd had a good day.
A bit late for you guys to be out, isn't it? Where are your parents?
The only answer I got was an impatient shaking of the baskets, the rasp of candy wrappers rustling. I held out a handful of candy, ready to drop it and call it a night. I expected to see a small pale hand clutching at the handle of the basket. Instead, I saw the anemic matte sheen of plastic. The basket was draped off the plastic hand of some kind of store mannequin. I was more thoroughly creeped out by this effective little trick. I shrugged. Maybe the voices were recorded, a little technology to bolster an otherwise traditional costume. I felt the fear melting away as I explained it to myself in my head. Just some clever little children, probably with the help of an adult. Smart, I thought. It had certainly got me going for a while.
Stay safe, I told them, dropping the last of the candy into the baskets. They didn't acknowledge me. They just stood still on the worn wooden boards of my porch. I shut the door on them. The window... Oh my god, why? I shut the door on them. The window darkened as the light on the porch shut off. Odd. Maybe the motion detector stopped working. Some unbidden instinct told me to stay there and wait. I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the porch as the two walked off. Still, the light stayed dark.
My relief grew as the odd strangers left my property. Still, something didn't sit right. Something wasn't right. The light was working. It turned on when it detected me. It saw me. It didn't see the kids. The sensor was working. It was state of the art. Passive infrared. Detected motion by detecting changes in temperature, like a human body. Like mine, but not the kids. Whatever was under those pristine white sheets wasn't warm at all.
The realization washed over me, like an ice cube running down my spine. My breath came in short rasps. I had to see. I had to know. I could barely bring my hand to the curtains, they were shaking so bad. When I pinched the edge of the curtain between my thumb and my finger, the curtain began to undulate wildly. I filled my lungs and peered out through the glass.
They were still there, barely 20 yards away, doing nothing, just standing there, motionless, facing the street. As I watched, they both swiveled their heads in perfect tandem to affix two pairs of fathomless eye holes on the window. Sorry, everybody.
There was no way. There was no way they could have seen me come to the window. I had to put the back of my hand in my mouth and bite down hard to keep from calling out. They knew. They knew I was there. I backed away from the window, dragging my leaden feet over the carpeted floor. I barely noticed when my heel knocked the can back. The beer leaked out onto the carpet, leaving a widening path. I couldn't believe the raw animal fear those two had summoned up in me. Every instinct I had told me to run, get help, anything but stay and be trapped in my own house.
What could I do? Call the police and tell them that I was scared of two little children trick-or-treating? Call one of my friends past midnight and ask them to come over like a little boy crawling to his parents' room after a nightmare? The situation was ridiculous. My mind told me so. That there had to be a rational explanation for everything. But I could not explain away the light, fluttery feeling in my stomach. I could not rationalize the prickly lump at the back of my throat. They'd only said 3 words to me, in those unearthly tones. Who knew how cold those lips were?
I shut the door to the kitchen, the sound echoing through the empty house. I turned my chair to face the front door, and then I waited, white-knuckled, for the dawn to come.
Break. I must have fallen asleep sometime during that long, cold wait, not daring to move from my chair, paralyzed with fear that one of those shrouded children would appear at my window, or worse yet, behind me. But even that manic store of energy wore out as the night wound to a close.
I was woken up by a polite knock on the front door. I sat bolt upright, nearly falling off my chair. I stumbled to the door, a hint of the dread from a few hours ago, still lingering, like a stale funk in the air. I checked the peephole again. This time, I was confronted with the well-scrubbed face of one of our town deputies. We'd been to school together. It was the kind of smallish town where you'd know almost everybody your age if they had a history there. He was an earnest man, tough but fair.
Good morning, officer.
Good morning, he replied. The sour look on his face told me that it was anything but that.
His nose twitched as he took in the stale, sour smell of beer streaming off the floor in the morning sun. Had a good night last night?
I thought back to the night before. No, I didn't.
The lawman was quick to see the fleeting shadow of doubt wash across my face. He pressed home his advantage. You care to explain why you stole the 2 mannequins from the store, dressed them up, and put them on your lawn?
He shifted to the side and past his door, filling bulk. I saw 2 familiar shapes on my lawn. My lungs wouldn't fill with air. They were still there. They'd been there the whole time.
You okay, buddy? The big man leaned in, blocking my view and steadied my shoulder with one of his strong hands.
I brushed his hand off and lurched out into the yard, mindless of the freezing dew on my bare feet. The pair stood there, the draped sheets joined in between them. They were holding hands. The two of them were holding hands. I brought my palm down gingerly on the head of the one near to me. Hard. I felt hard plastic. I whipped the sheet off with one smooth motion. I gave a strangled cry as I stared into the empty green eyes of a child mannequin.
I backed away. Too quick. I ended up on my ass on the cold grass, clawing and scrambling backwards until I bumped into the solid legs of the deputy behind me. He'd been quick to recognize my unease earlier. He was just as quick to realize genuine fear. He hoisted me back to my feet and helped me back into my house.
Mind telling me what this is all about? He dumped me on the office chair in front of my computer. I tried, but I couldn't force the words out.
The deputy sighed and settled onto my couch, wrinkling his nose at the empty beer cans on the side table. He leaned forward. First call of the morning after Halloween, I'm chasing down some bullshit break into a store in the middle of town. Now I've got you hung over and scared shitless from a damn pair of dolls on your front yard. What I know is someone got into a store, smashed up the glass, stole the sheets and a couple of mannequins. Bloody kids again, except the glass.
The lines on his brow deepened. I watched his Adam's apple bob up and down. The glass was on the outside of the shop only. Damnedest thing. You've got a camera on your yard, don't you?
I nodded numbly.
What say you give me another 10 minutes of your time, tops? We go through that footage. I see who put those things on your lawn, and then I'll be out of your life, hopefully for good.
I turned to face my computer and called up the stored videos on my hard drive. They were all transferred by Wi-Fi. Convenient for the time that I bought the cameras.
Just put on double speed backwards. We'll see who set them there soon enough.
I hit the reverse play key and upped the speed. I saw the two of us scuttle from the house to the lawn and back again, then the first rays of the sun retreating from the grass, pulling back over the pair of figures until they were back in darkness. The two of them stood there, motionless for the longest time.
When the two figures moved, all by themselves, in a jerky, swaying motion, back from my lawn to my front door, and the cursor danced a little jig in the corner of the screen as the shakes returned, stronger than before. The sharp hiss behind me told I wasn't alone in my discomfort.
I shuddered as I watched myself on the screen, so close to the two abominations, giving them a handful of candy each. I slowed the recording back to normal speed. On screen, I saw myself turn back into the house to retrieve the candy. The two figures stood there, impassive. As one, they both fixed those dark eye holes on the sheets on the camera. There was something else unmistakable. There was a slight pulse in the sheets, a small undulation. The mannequins were breathing.
I've seen enough.
I turned to look at the deputy, his face as white as the sheets on the shrouded figures on the screen, his hand tighter on the grip of his sidearm. That, of all things, scared me the most. A symbol of law and order who had seen the worst of what our little community had to offer, just as scared as I was, and ready to pull a gun in my house. I clicked the window shut and got up. I wandered over to my cabinet. I pulled out a pair of tumblers and a bottle of the good stuff. The bottle gave a couple of contented glugs as I sloshed the rich golden whiskey into the glasses. I set one down in front of the other man and took a sip from my glass.
A lawman could lose his job drinking on duty. The deputy didn't hesitate when he emptied half his glass. He didn't look at me when he spoke.
My old Nan wasn't from around here. She was back from the old country, across the sea. She hated Halloween. Said there were things out that night that weren't meant to see the light of day. One night a year, she told me, for one single night, some things were set loose. The candy and costumes were a new thing. Back in the past, on All Hallows Eve, good folk crossed themselves and prayed and stayed in. Whatever's on that recording, it's not what our town needs, you understand?
Dumb high school kids, I said, the lie taking shape and form in my mouth. Fooling around. The lie fleshed out, took on a veneer of credibility. That would be the explanation. No one had to know the dark kernel of that story.
And your camera, it was having technical difficulties that night.
Never was a good piece of equipment. Regretted buying it the same week.
He stuck out his hand, and we shook on it, and I've kept my word to now.
There isn't a good reason why I broke my promise. I'd never know true fear till that night. but I replay it in my head over and over. The recording is long gone, of course, but every detail of that night has been branded on my mind. I remember the fear, but I cannot think of a single action the two of them had done to threaten me, eerie, unnatural, but without a drop of malice.
It'll be Halloween soon. I know where I'll be on that dark night. Some things roam the streets that shouldn't be there. The masks and costumes aren't always for the children. Sometimes they're there for the adults, for our own protection.
After the deputy left, I watched the video, forwards, just once. I remember seeing the two figures on my lawn, slowly inching their hands up, locking them under the sheets, and waiting for the sun to rise. Things that shouldn't be out on this good earth. But sometimes, just sometimes, they just want the simple things, like one last trick or treat.
Ah!
Ah! Jump scare!
Is that, did y'all hear that? Wait,
Hear
what?
what?
Never mind. Well, for me, someone messaged me on Steam right as you all said that, and I was like, "Oh shit." That was interesting. Honestly, that's kind of a somber ending. Like the ghost just wanted trick or treating.
Yeah, it wasn't a sad ending, or it wasn't a scary ending. It was sort of like a melancholy sort of like, oh, spooky. But yeah, so that was just a random creepypasta we pulled up. It was good. I went through a phase in like high school where I had consumed so many creepypastas. Like I would just come home every day from school and watch Mr. Creepypasta and just play that in the background while I did other stuff like homework or whatever.
I'm not huge on like creepypasta specifically, but I really like horror media. I think it's really fun. I think it's fun to be scared.
I'm not huge on them either. I've never really listened to them or anything, but that was interesting. I like that one.
But the one we're doing on Thursday, hopefully, is my favorite. And it's not one that's like super creepy. It's one of those where like you really think like it's a creepy tone, but it's not like monsters murdering people and all this stuff. Like it's good.
I mean, that was pretty eerie, honestly. I kind of expected something more, though. I don't know. It could be scarier.
But he did from the ending. It sounded like he didn't want it to be scary.
That's true. But it could have been creepier, honestly. I think, but it was still good. Like it was still, and honestly, though, I'm gonna be honest about it. Like he wrote this pretty well. Like there were some parts in it that was like that sounded really good. I can't remember what line it was, but there was one line that I was like, wow, that was a really good line.
There were, and then there were lines that were like classic people write, and it seems like you have to over-explain. Like when he was explaining like the beer on the floor, it's like it's just beer on the floor.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't need to know how the heat was wafting fumes of it into the air and into your nostrils.
There was just one line that like really hit me. I don't remember what it was though.
But who am I to criticize writing? It was a good story, and we picked one of the ones that were. I picked one of the ones that was higher rated on the recent ones. So.
I actually liked the part at the very beginning where he was like, "Oh God," he's like he like you could feel like he was actually just like afraid because he'd been woken up.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, it's just kids. Thank God. Wait, it's really late, and they're wearing dress shoes." And he like started piecing it together.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that part. He was like, "They were wearing dress shoes, which is kind of unusual. They didn't activate the motion lights until I opened the door."
I like the one where like he explains it away, and he's like, "Oh, it's just kids being kids," and then he's like, as soon as like he relieves his fear, he's like, "Wait a minute."
Oh, it was
the lights.
It was this part. For a moment, I blamed the haze of alcohol, the drugs of sleep clouding my judgment. But adrenaline had swept those far away. My fear was true. I really like that line. That was good. Just personally.
All in all, good job, L-Chan.
That was good.
But yeah, creepypastas are fun. If you don't want to just sit and read, I recommend just like listening to them. Get you in the mood for Halloween. There's a couple of really, really good ones out there. The one that's, if you've got a lot of time to listen to, Tom, you may have heard of it before. Borrasca. Or no, was it Borrasca?
I know, I haven't heard of this.
It's about the town called Borrasca. Borrasca. That's going to kill me. Boraska. Bora.
There was a game I had that was like a horror game, but like not really scary. It was like Coca-Cola or something.
No, it's Borrasca. Borrasca.
Okay.
and it's about like a town called Varesk. It's a long one. It's like a multiple part one, but it's really, really, really good. It's. I guess I will put like a warning. It's got some really like explicit content in it, and it's less about like unforeseen monsters, but more so like the monster that is like humanity, like what people could do.
Okay.
And it's about kids, and it's really actually one that's really good. Have you ever heard of the one that's Tales from a Search and Rescue Officer?
I've heard of that one, but I haven't actually read it.
Hold up, I want to do this one for a little bit. We'll do a little bit of the part one because this is fun. We got a little bit more time. Let's do the part one. We'll trade off the bullet points. But this is the stuff that I really, really like because it's like bordering on that like cryptids or like the unknown.
Ooh, I love Reddit No Sleep. Not really.
Oh, wait, no.
Creeps me the heck out.
Okay, so click that and then go to part one.
Yeah.
I linked you part 4. So I'll start and then we'll just trade off bullet point stories.
This
And
is
then-
what we're gonna do for like the rest of the podcast. Just read stories.
We'll do this. This is the last one. We'll do this. We'll wrap up because Tom's got to leave.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so these are really good series. There's 4 of them, and then if you like these, I recommend reading the other 3. We won't spoil them all for you, but we'll give you a taste of the first one. So it's on Reddit, titled "I'm a Search and Rescue Officer for the U.S. Forest Service, and I have some stories to tell." He says
It'll be linked in the description of the video,
it will.
the podcast.
I wasn't sure where else to post these stories, so I figured I'd share them here. I've been an SAR officer for a few years now, and along the way, I've seen some things that I think you guys will be interested in. I have a pretty good track record for finding missing people. Most of the time, they just wander off the path or slip down a small cliff and they can't find their way back. The majority of them have heard the old stay where you are thing and don't wander far, but I've had 2 cases where that didn't happen. Both bother me a lot, and I use them as motivation to search even harder on the missing persons cases I get called on. The first was a little boy who was out berry picking with his parents. He and his sister were together, and both of them went missing around the same time. Their parents lost sight of them for a few seconds, and in that time, the kids apparently wandered off. When the parents couldn't find them, they called us, and we came out to search the area. We found the daughter pretty quickly, and when we asked where her brother was, she told us that he'd been taken away by the bear man. She said he gave her berries and told her to stay quiet, and that he wanted to play with her brother for a while. The last she saw of her brother, he was riding on the shoulders of the bear man and seemed calm. Of course, our first thought was abduction, but we never found trace of another human being in that area. The little girl was also insistent that he wasn't a normal man, that he was tall and covered in hair like a bear, and that he had a weird face. We searched that area for weeks. It was one of the longest calls I've ever been on, but we'd never found a single trace of that kid. The other was a young woman who was out hiking with her mom and grandpa. According to the mother, her daughter had climbed up a tree to get a better view of the forest, and she'd never come back down. They waited at the base of the tree for hours, calling her name before they called for help. Again, we searched everywhere, but we never found a trace of her. I have no idea where she could have possibly have gone because neither her mother or her grandpa ever saw her come down.
A few times, I've been out on my own searching with a canine, and they've tried to lead me straight up cliffs. Not hills, even rock faces. Straight, sheer cliffs, with no possible handholds. It's always baffling, and in those cases, we usually find the person on the other side of the cliff, or miles away from where the canine has led us. I'm sure there's an explanation, but it's sort of strange.
One particularly sad case involved a recovery of a body. A 9-year-old girl fell down an embankment and got impaled on a dead tree at the base. It was a complete freak accident, but I'll never forget the sound her mother made when we told her that it had happened. She saw the body bag being loaded into the ambulance, and she let out the most haunting, heartbreaking wail I've ever heard. It was like her whole life was crashing down around her, and a part of her had died with her daughter. I heard from another SAR officer that she killed herself a few weeks after it happened. She couldn't live with the loss of her daughter.
I was teamed up with another SAR officer because we'd received reports of bears in the area. We were looking for a guy who hadn't come home from a climbing trip when he was supposed to, and we ended up having to do some serious climbing to get to where we figured he'd be. We found him trapped in a small crevice with a broken leg. It was not pleasant. He'd been there for almost 2 days, and his leg was obviously infected. We were able to get him into the chopper, and I heard from one of the EMTs that the guy was absolutely inconsolable. He kept talking about how he'd been doing fine, and when he'd gotten to the top, a man had been there. He said the guy had no climbing equipment, and he was wearing a parka and ski pants. He walked up to the guy, and when the guy turned around, he said he had no face. It was just blank. He freaked out and ended up trying to get off the mountaintop too fast, which is why he'd fallen. He said he could hear the guy all night climbing down the mountain and letting out these horrible muffled screams. That story bothered the hell out of me, and I'm glad I wasn't there to hear it.
One of the scariest things I'd ever had happen to me involved the search for a young woman who'd gotten separated from her hiking group. We were out until late at night because the dogs had picked up her scent. When we found her, she was curled up under a large rotted log. She was missing her shoes and pack, and she was clearly in shock. She didn't have any injuries, and we were able to get her to walk with us back to the base ops. Along the way, she kept looking behind us and asking us why the big man with black eyes was following us. We couldn't see anyone, so we just wrote it off as some weird symptom of shock. But the closer we got to the base, the more agitated this woman got. She kept asking me to tell him to stop making faces at her. At one point, she stopped and turned around and started yelling into the forest, saying that she wanted him to leave her alone. She wasn't going to go with him, she said, and she wouldn't give us to him. We finally got her to keep moving, but we started hearing these weird noises coming from all around us. It was almost like coughing, but more rhythmic and deeper. It was almost insect-like. I don't really know how else to describe it. When we were within sight of base ops, the woman turns to me, and her eyes are about as wide as I can imagine a human could open them. She touches my shoulder and says, "He says to tell you to speed up. He doesn't like looking at the scar on your neck." I have a very small scar on the base of my neck, but it's mostly hidden under my collar, and I have no idea how this woman saw it. Right after she says it, I hear that weird coughing right in my ear, and just about jumped out of my skin. I hustled her to ops, trying not to show how freaked out I was, but I have to say I was really happy when we left the area that night.
This is the last one I'll tell, and it's probably the weirdest story I have. Now, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken regular thing we run into. You can try asking about it with other SAR officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point, we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case where we're really far into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles out at some point, we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about this every time I saw some, and the other officer just told me to not worry about it, that it was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told very emphatically that I should never go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them because it happens so frequently.
And then the rest of them are part 2, 3, and 4. Then there's follow-ups. I
I'm
like
gonna
these
read
because the other ones I think are better, but it's sort of like found footage, but in the story. This is actually the shortest one, I think. I remember I kind of was worried that this was gonna go on too long, but these are really. I guess the other parts are really long. Yeah, part 2 is like 3 times as long. But yeah, it's like found footage, but in that, I think that's like one of the scariest things to me is like the deep woods. Like when we used to run cross country and stuff. Like if you get out there and like it could be like the middle of the day, but if you're in like dense forest, it's pretty dark and it's a pretty freaky place out in the middle of the woods. I can't imagine being a search and rescue officer.
I'm actually kind of freaked out now.
You should read part 3, 4, or 2, 3, and 4. They're really, really, really good.
Are we
I
doing
like
it
them.
now?
No. We don't.
Okay, because I was gonna be like, that might be gonna take a second.
2 is forever long. But there's like 2 is more like longer stories. We should have read part 2. Anywho, yeah, because he talks about the staircases and stuff. One of them I'll tell you is the staircase thing.
Yeah.
Is like he talks about. I think later on, one of them is he interviews another search and rescue officer who's willing to talk to him, and they talk about the stairs. And the other search and rescue officer, she was on a case, and they were like trying to find a kid, and she went on the stairs, like she stepped on them, and then like blacked out. Or like, and they found her like 8 hours later, and she felt like only like 5 minutes had passed, and she got yelled at, and they threatened to take her job away because they can't explain why. But anytime anyone ever touches or gets on one of the staircases, if they're on a case, it always goes cold, and they'll never find the person they're looking for.
It's weird. Also, I was reading the comments on this story, and someone says that, in all seriousness, you'd be really surprised at what you find out in the boonies up here in New England and some of the more rural states. It's not all impossible to find old foundations, cellars, or even short staircases just out should I read this word? In the middle of nowhere. That's if they're built well, but they're kind of rare and usually are all accompanied by foundations. So it's weird because it's like people will go out there and like at a time where like building stuff and then kind of just abandon it. And so there's like all this stuff out in the middle of the woods. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really creepy, actually.
Well, I mean, if you've ever been to like campsites or anything, if you ever like in the middle of the day, obviously, because you're not going to be walking around in the woods at night. If you ever go like out on like a hiking trail, if you ever just like step like a 5-minute walk off of a trail, normally you'll find like old buildings or sheds or stuff like that. Like even here, they're really like commonplace.
Yeah, we'd stumble upon like
There's a lot of
half. Like,
stories
you
about
could
the
see like
stairs.
stone
It's weird.
foundations.
Some people are suggesting that the stairs are an SAR inside joke, though.
I mean, that might be, but
I mean, with every creepy story you read, you could also just feel like it's a good author and none of it's real. He's not even a search and rescue officer, but it's more fun to believe. There's also a series of these done by a different person, but they're stories of a deep sea diver, and those are really creepy. But all right, I guess we should. Oh, okay, never mind. I think we just lost audio for about 5 seconds.
I just googled stairs in the woods.
Stairs in the woods.
woodland stairs.
Oh, those are creepy looking.
Which one? The big ones? Are like the first ones that come up?
Just anyone's. Like the ones that like.
It's weird because they're like not ancient looking or like old looking. A lot of them are like
Some of them are like dilapidated, but some of them are like very well made.
yeah.
I guess this one's really popular, the one that's got like the concrete
Yeah,
sidings
that's
on it.
really weird.
Because there's like it's in several different pictures at 7 different angles. Here's someone sliding down it.
Yeah. That's really creepy. I don't like this.
Oh, there's one like down here. It's like Smurf people.
See, and I hate that like I see that. I hate that my natural reaction is like kind of curious. I'm like, ooh, look, I want to go find some steps in the woods.
No, I would really love to do like.
Yeah, what if we
talked
die,
about it last
John?
time. Well, I mean, I don't want to die, but we were talking about it last time.
If there's no
Uh,
podcast next week, you know what happened.
I found the stairs.
on those stairs in the woods.
But Hunter brought up paranormal last week, and we were talking about if you believe in ghosts or not. And I'm like, I don't. And I feel bad because I have a lot of friends and stuff who like swear by ghosts or swear they've seen ghosts and stuff like that. I don't want to flat out call people like liars. I just think they've been in situations where something has been at force that created a scary situation that they can't explain.
Yeah, I also just think people like if you're scared, like your mind will play tricks on you. Honestly,
Yeah. But like for me to believe,
even me.
I would have to like see a ghost. I just think that if I had I really want undeniable proof.
Uh-huh.
I would love nothing more than that. But that was what it would have to take. Is like we were in like an old building and like Tom got picked up by his t-shirt and like slammed into a wall.
No, that's really I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with that at all. I don't fuck with demons. I don't fuck
As
with
long as we all make it out alive, I'll see whatever it takes. But
Oh, really?
I'll
I'm
deal
glad
with
I'm
it.
allegedly the test subject for this.
I don't want to be slammed into the wall. If you get slammed into the wall, I'll believe in ghosts.
Yeah, but if John gets slammed in the wall, then ghosts aren't real.
If I get
No.
slammed, it isn't real.
If you're a real ghost, slam Tom right now.
It's a risk I'm
And then
willing to take.
the ghost just pulls up his parses from
Huh.
Final Fantasy 14.
Well, I want to go walk in the woods. Jesse, can you walk in
Oh.
the woods?
Fun
All right,
stuff,
well,
fun stuff.
I hate to.
Oh no, I was gonna say we've been on for about an hour now. We've done our horror, so stick around the rest of the week. Hopefully we'll do some fun Halloween things, and then we'll see you next Monday in November. So
Spooktober.
hopefully you all have a very spooky Halloween and you
This
have
is part of
fun.
our
Stay safe out there. If you
Spooktober.
find any staircases out in the middle of the woods, write into us.
Take a picture and
Take a
document
picture.
it, and
do not walk up them.
and go walk down the stairs into the ground.
Please do not.
All right, we'll see you all next week.
See you
Goodbye.
later.
Bye bye.